and welcome. You're watching Faultlines. I'm Gauri Dwivedi. This week, we take a look at the longest war in the Middle East and put the 2 years of the Israel-Hamas war in context for you. Tell you the big highlights of the deadliest war that the region has seen in decades. Next up, we head to Bangladesh, which eyes cutting-edge Chinese fighter jets, a $2.2 billion power play that could reshape South Asia's skies and the larger geopolitical impact it's likely to have in the region. Viewers, it's been the longest war in the Middle East in the last couple of decades, and maybe the most brutal one. This week, Faultlines looks back at the devastating wars of the Israel-Hamas conflict and the larger impact it had on the entire region. A war that began with the brutal attack by Hamas on October 7, 2023, spiraled into one of the deadliest regional conflicts in the history of that region. From Gaza City and Tel Aviv to Beirut to Tehran, the shockwaves of this war spread and touched nearly every corner of the Middle East. At the heart of it all, a cost not measured, not just in terms of bombs, not just measured in terms of weaponry. It was about 67,000 Palestinians that have been killed, including more than 18,000 children. Of course, a lot of these are numbers that have come in from the Palestinian side, the Gaza Authority, which one needs to keep that in mind. But nevertheless, lives have been lost. Likewise, it started with the 2,000 Israelis who've lost their lives, first in the brutal attack by Hamas, and then followed with the relentless war that's pursued over 2 years. And add to it the hostages that are with them. 20 alive, 28 of them, in total 48 of them, 20 alive and 28 cadavers with them. At least 170,000 Palestinians have been wounded, 2.1 million forced from their homes. Israel, which has over 20,000 soldiers, have been injured. Nearly 1 lakh civilians have been displaced. Gaza lies in ruins. And that's the larger story, viewers. Gaza lies in ruins. 75% of its territory is now under Israeli occupation. 9 in 10 Gazans are living in poverty. Again, that's only one side of it. There is the huge toll it has taken on the Israeli side as well. I spoke about the hostages. I spoke about the fact it started because of the brutal attack on Israel. And the war has proved to be both deadly and extremely expensive. There is the human cost and then the other actual cost of the wars. Israel's own war costs have soared beyond $55 billion, ripple effects across defense budgets, aid, economies worldwide being impacted by that. At one point, 8 other countries were directly involved. As I said, this is a war that spread to almost the entire region, engulfing all of it. Some launching missiles, others intercepting them, many caught in the crossfire. First, let's break down the major players. And here's how the war pulled them in. Let's get you some of those numbers and also get you some of those graphics to tell you exactly how things shaped up and unraveled. In terms of which were the key players in the Gaza conflict, there was Hezbollah, another terrorist organization based out of Lebanon, which also joined in after Israel was attacked by Hamas. Hezbollah exchanged fire along the southern border. In fact, Hezbollah still is extremely well armed, huge rockets that they had fired, long distance rockets that they had fired from Israel's southern border. Next, the other players who were part of this war included Iran, which armed and financed this proxy group. It calls it the axis of resistance. But there are these terrorist organizations funded, supported, backed, aided by Iran. Next up, the other key players that are there, Yemen. Houthis had launched missiles towards Israel. At one point of time, there was deep concerns around the world that the global shipping lines would be completely paralyzed because of Yemen's attacks in the Red Sea, aiming at Israel, but ensuring that the entire region's trade collapses. Next up, the other key players, Iraq. The Iran-aligned militias had attacked the US bases. Again, this is an area where America has a very large presence, all of which was under attack when several of these other players joined in. Let's get in Sudan as well. Jordan, first of all, intercepted missiles that were aimed at Israel. Now, we've been talking about both sides. Jordan played that role as well, which intercepted the missiles that were aimed at Israel. Jordan is also a key ally when it comes to America, has been itself impacted because of the regional tensions, is an important voice in the Muslim world, and this is how its role shaped up. Now, let's also get in the US. It brokered the ceasefire, supported Israeli defense, backed it completely. Earlier under the Biden regime, things changed when Donald Trump came in. But as far as America's Israel position is concerned, it remains rock solid. It stands behind Netanyahu. Several attempts were made in the past to broker peace. Finally, it happened with America backing Israel all along. Let's get in UK as well. The other American partners who've been backing Israel, but also saying that there has to be a line that needs to be drawn in. UK said it joined US in terms of the Houthi airstrikes, because as I said, there was a collapse of shipping lines that was being feared across the entire region. UK joined in to attack Houthis, another terrorist organization. This is how several of these other players joined in as far as this war is concerned. Now, to know more about this, in terms of what this conflict really led to, the tens of thousands of casualties, the widespread displacement, let's get you the 5 most destructive aspects to really understand why this conflict, when it ends, when peace is being brokered, there is a real chance at that happening. How significant is it? Because this report is going to tell you those 5 most deadly moments of this conflict when it looked like there is no possibility of peace as things stand.
It started on the 7th of October 2023. Hamas militants launched a surprise attack inside Israel. Over 1,200 people died, mostly civilians. 251 hostages were taken. One day, massive impact. Israel responded with relentless airstrikes over Gaza. In just 6 weeks, more than 10,000 Palestinians were killed. The UN says nearly 90% of Gaza's population was displaced. Hospitals, homes, entire neighborhoods simply destroyed. On the 13th of April 2024, Iran entered the fight. For the first time, it launched missiles and drone strikes directly on Israeli soil. This broadened the conflict into a regional war. In September of 2024, Israel hit Hezbollah's communications in Lebanon. Thousands of devices exploded in the blink of an eye. At least 39 people died and nearly 3,000 others were injured. Hezbollah's network was severely disrupted. Then, on the 9th of September 2025, Israel struck in Qatar's Doha. The target were Hamas officials meeting there. 6 people died, including a Qatari security officer. Qatar condemned the strike, calling it a violation of sovereignty. These are 5 among the many moments defining the scale of this war. Unending agony for hostages' families in Israel, over 67 deaths in Gaza alone. Almost every resident displaced at least once. The toll is staggering, and the only question on every mind, will this ceasefire deal finally hold? Bureau Report, NDTV World.
All right, viewers, let's now get you the big set of weaponry that was used, the deadliest arms that were used by all sides. Israel, when it defended itself against what at one point was a 7-point attack from multiple terror organizations. Let's put out some of those weaponry for you to better understand what this conflict was really all about. First up, from the Israeli side, let's get you the big set of weaponry it used to defend itself, the precision-guided heavy bombs. Next up, there was the other set of, there was the Arrow long-range missile interceptor. This played a very important role because of the long-range rockets that were fired both by Hamas and then later by Hezbollah as well as Houthis as well. David Sling mid-range missile system again came in very handy because of the long-range missiles and rockets that were being fired by all sides attacking Israel. Next, there was the assault rifles for infantry. This was important when the much discussed, deliberated and planned ground assault came into being from Israeli side. When it launched their ground assault, this is what was very important. And then satellite guided airstrike coordination when it was bombing with precision Hamas headquarters, Hamas leadership. This is what was important. Let's get you what it all did the Hamas side, the terror organization, used to attack Israel. First and foremost, unguided rockets saturating civilian areas. This essentially has been the hallmark of Hamas, and this is how it actually started. The question was raised that did this meant that Israel's Iron Dome was not perfect. It was defeatable, and that's what Hamas relied on. Next up, underground tunnel networks that enabled ambushes. Again, something that many feel and analysts feel is actually larger, if not as big, as the London Tube network. That's the scale at which Hamas has built this tunnel network. Many say money for aid actually went for these tunnel networks, and this was very important for them to launch those ambushes. When when you had about 1,000 odd Israeli soldiers who lost their lives, a lot of it was due to these ambushes. Next up, explosive-laden drones that were used for short strikes. This was part of their template that they had used very regularly to attack Israel. RPGs and light anti-tank missiles they had used, which is why I spoke about what all was the infantry and what was the weaponry on the Israeli side to counter all of this that Hamas had used to attack Israel. And lastly, improvised explosives, booby-trapped urban areas, densely populated urban areas, which ensured that when Israel attacked Hamas, it invariably led to civilian casualties, something that Hamas wanted because it was using a lot of those civilians as just cannon fodder. Well, all right, viewers, it's now time to get you to important voices to discuss the entire issue and the conflict in greater detail. Mr. Diros, who's joining me from Ankara. You have Mr. Hoffman, who's joining me from and representing the Israeli side in this discussion. Gentlemen, thank you so much for speaking to me on Faultlines. It's days to go for hostages to be released. There is a huge sigh of relief that breakthroughs have been achieved. Your first thoughts, both of you, on the fact that this conflict lasted over 2 years, took so many efforts, but finally peace has been brokered. Mr. Dirios, to you first.
Yes, hello, and thank you for having me. And yes, we have to remember that October 7th was just a few days ago, and 2 years have passed, and now we have probably the closest chance to have a lasting ceasefire and hopefully eventually peace in the region, because as we have discussed, the war in Gaza has not just been an atrocity and a tragedy for the people of Gaza and also for the people in Israel, but also for global trade, for across the world, and great regional instability. So now we have an opportunity where the Israeli cabinet has also agreed, passed a motion to agree to the ceasefire, and hopefully in Egypt we'll see there will be a ceremony, and we will have a lasting ceasefire this time around with the release of the remaining hostages, and on Monday or Tuesday next week.
Okay.
And from then on, hopefully, we'll start to see more peace and reconstruction, hopefully, because as you mentioned, over 67,000 people in Gaza alone died, and over 1,200 people in Israel just on October 7, 2023.
Yeah, I think the total death toll right now in Israel stands at 2,000 right now. But again, the fact that there are still the hostages that were with Hamas, the bargaining chip for the terror organization, was the reason why those peace talks didn't fructify till now. Mr. Hoffman, your thoughts on
I agree with
peace
Ali
talks,
that
and where do you see them going in terms of the longevity of this truce?
I agree with Ali that I hope and pray that peace is on the way for the people of Israel here and all the people of the region. I want to take you back to October 6th of 2023. I met then with Netanyahu's national security advisor. We talked about the different threats that Israel was facing. And when he got to Hamas, he said, oh, they've been in power for 16 years. What they care about is getting more workers into Israel. We were taken so completely by surprise. He was in the middle of negotiating a peace agreement with Saudi Arabia that would have doubled the amount of Gazan workers coming into Israel and revitalized the Gazan economy. That's where we were, and that's where Yahya Sinwar, the Hamas leader, wanted to stop. He saw the Abraham Accords were moving forward. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia had spoken at the UN General Assembly in September about normalizing relations with Israel. This would have, for all intents and purposes, ended the Arab-Israeli conflict without a war. That's where I wish we were. And since then, I've seen your numbers. To add to the 1,200 Israelis killed on October 7th, 913 soldiers since then, 1,059 Israeli civilians since then. And let's not forget, within an 8-front war, all the missiles and rockets that were fired at Israel, 37,500 of them. If it weren't for all the different missile defense systems that Israel has, they would have killed tens of thousands of Israelis.
I agree, Mr. Hoffman. I completely agree with you. And that's a number that we should put that out, that you're saying that 37,500 rockets were fired towards Israel. It was a 7-front war, and we at NDTV have been very clearly telling viewers two sides of this. It's not something that Israel just decided to go ahead and bombard Gaza. It happened because it was an act of war that happened on 7th of October, which led to the assault. And the fact that hostages were still there with Hamas delayed and prolonged these peace talks. But Mr. Hoffman, very quickly, I want to ask from you, some of the deals, aspects and conditions Hamas hasn't accepted. Of course, first stage is most important, which is that hostages must come back. They must reunite with their families. But some of the other more difficult aspects of the peace talks, ensuring that Hamas doesn't rearm, ensuring that Hamas doesn't play a role as far as Gaza is concerned, that I think is where the peace framework will be tested.
Absolutely. We need to make sure that the lives of the people of Gaza will be able to be better. They haven't been suffering only for 2 years. They've been suffering since 2007, when the Hamas overtook Gaza in a coup. And since then, you've had Islamic fundamentalist rule there in Gaza. You have aid flowing in from all around the world. But it's gone underground in order to be used in attacks against Israel instead of above ground to help the people of Gaza. And so what we hope is that Gaza will be demilitarized, no longer under Hamas rule, because the people who have been killed or suffered in this war in Gaza, it's entirely because Hamas leadership did not care about their people. They were obsessed with killing my people.
Okay, Mr. Dirios, very quickly. There are estimates and there are reports which suggest that Hamas's underground tunnel network, which many analysts say is actually larger than the tube network, is still intact. It hasn't been demolished completely the way Israel would have thought it would in the last 2 years. I'm asking you this because it also points towards whether Hamas would look at rearming itself beyond the first phase, which completes on Monday when the hostages return.
Well, I wouldn't know to speak for Hamas because, frankly speaking, I'm not very much on the follow of Hamas itself. But I'm more concerned about not just Hamas, but with this becoming an excuse for the end of, because in the past there were also other ceasefires, and this has unfortunately not been followed with similar reasons. Now, I'm not going to say whether they're right or whether they're wrong, but we have to remember that there is a security dilemma in which Israel is involved. It's not just about the number of tunnels, the number of interception and the precision weapons, but the state of Israel has been arming for many, many years and has been very tough on Hamas. And the Netanyahu government has used the word collateral damage, which at the beginning, a lot of the people in Europe, for instance, were in countries where there was public opinion in sympathy towards Israel.
Okay.
And that, at the end of 2 years, the term collateral has been synonymous with indiscriminate, and that has caused a security dilemma.
That's a fair point you raised, sir, that there cannot be indiscriminate killing of civilians.
Exactly.
And that is something that I think there's been global concern regarding it, which is why peace talks were being pushed by all stakeholders to ensure that this indiscriminate firing, indiscriminate killing must end. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me.
I want to add one more thing. It's very, just to complement.
Very quickly, sir, yeah.
Very quickly. There will be a task force in Gaza if it's agreed on the peace deal. And it's supposed to comprise of international task force, both military and civilians. And today, Turkish authorities strictly underline that they will make sure every line of that agreement has been followed. So as far as Turkey is concerned, they will make sure that both Hamas and Israel
stick to the peace framework. Nobody wants it to fall apart, because lives are at stake, global peace is at stake. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on Faultlines. Well, viewers, as far as this issue is concerned, as far as the conflict is concerned, if you take your blinkers off, you realize this was a conflict that started in Israel on 7th of October 2023, but the battlefields were many. From university campuses to capitals across Europe, across the developed world, even in India, one saw protests coming out. There was the narrative war, the information war, and the battlefield war, all of which was taking place simultaneously. As things stand right now, there is chance of a real peace, provided that peace framework is agreed to by all sides. Even as questions still remain, how and when will that governance of Gaza, the framework of which has been decided, will actually come into motion, and who will ensure that that peace framework that has been agreed right now, all sides stick to it? What is the incentive that all stakeholders must stick to the peace framework? That's the key question, because otherwise there is always a risk of these two truce talks collapsing after the release of hostages come the 13th of October. That will be a milestone of a day for the families of hostages. But what lies ahead is a question that many are still asking as far as the region is concerned. Well, viewers, on that note, we're slipping into a very short break. We come back on the other side and talk more about Bangladesh's plans to purchase 20 Chinese jets. What does it mean? We tell you more on that. Viewers, Bangladesh plans to purchase 20 Chinese-made fighter jets. The deal could be as much as $2.2 billion for a country that is struggling to ensure that it feeds its people. It wants to prioritize modernizing of its air force and bolster national air defense. Why is the question, and why are Chinese jets being preferred is the larger point. This report answers that for you.
A major shift is unfolding in South Asia's strategic skies. Bangladesh has reportedly announced plans to purchase 20 Chinese J-10CE multi-role fighter jets. a deal worth around 2.2 billion US dollars in what is being dubbed as one of Dhaka's most ambitious defense upgrades yet. The proposed deal, part of Bangladesh's long-term modernization plan, aims to replace aging Chinese F-7 and Russian MiG-29 fighters. The J-10CE, a fourth-generation aircraft, is equipped with AESA radar, advanced avionics, and long-range air-to-air missiles, giving Dhaka a serious boost in regional air capabilities. But this deal isn't just about defense, it's about geopolitics. Bangladesh has historically balanced relations between India and China. Yet, this purchase deepens Dhaka's strategic ties with Beijing, already its largest supplier of military hardware. In New Delhi, the news is likely being viewed with concern as India could now face Chinese-made fighter jets on both flanks. Pakistan in the west and Bangladesh in the east. This may push the Indian Air Force to accelerate its own expansion. Recently, India cleared a deal for 97 Tejas Mark 1A fighters and finalized an agreement with France to buy 26 Rafale M jets for its navy. For now, the purchase is still under government review in Dhaka. But if it goes ahead, it could redefine the balance of air power across South Asia. Bangladesh strengthening ties with China, India ramping up its defenses, and a new race for air superiority taking shape over the Bay of Bengal.
Viewers, with that, we wrap things up on this edition of Faultlines. Thanks so much for watching. We come back next week with yet another conflict, yet another war zone decoded for you.